Hey everybody, hope you all had a great weekend. This is To The Point. I'm your host, Noah Warren. I'm here live tonight because I'm going to start doing this on Sunday. React to the NFL, talk about some different things from over the course of the weekend. We'll still do shows throughout the week, but I'm beginning a new position tomorrow, so a new job, so there's less time and the days, things of that nature. But there'll still be shows every week. I plan to do I'm gonna say 3 to 4 a week. That's the plan. I want to do obviously the betting show every Friday. When it comes to just best lines, things to look into going into the respective weekends. So there will be content, but I thought Sunday night it's great. I've just watched the football. You can react to it in real time. Also, this morning you had the college football playoff committee release their final four. So a lot happened. We also had a great UFC card this weekend. I might save that for later in the week because there's a lot of meat on that bone, and I want to react to it and give it the full respect that it deserves because the UFC put on one of its best fight nights, which is a non pay-per-view event of the year, which was in Austin, Texas, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. So we will talk about that later in the week. But today, football. The 1 o'clock window today was one of the worst 1 o'clock windows in recent memory. It's a lot of bad football. There's a lot of games that you didn't care to watch. The Steelers-Cardinals game was delayed 3 different times. The Jets benched Tim Boyle, who was the third string to begin with. So you bench a third string to bring in a fourth string. You had anytime the Patriots play now, it's a pain and suffering fee to get through the game. They haven't allowed more than 10 points in their last 3 games, and they haven't won any of them. But they fall to 2-10, and the Cardinals win. So that means as of right now, the New England Patriots with the second pick in the draft, which is of course what they want, and Bill Belichick will likely be out of town. So I think it's a new era in New England. It won't be the Zap attack or Mac Jones playing quarterback for them moving forward if they have any sense of a brain. We'll wait and see. That's a further story. What I will say is the Chargers only scoring 6 points, not scoring a touchdown the entire day is something else. Brandon Staley will be fired. It's a matter of if, not when. It's happening. But what can we talk about in the NFL today? The biggest result by far is San Francisco beating down the Philadelphia Eagles. Marketed as one of the games of the year, 2 Goliaths in the NFC, the rematch of the NFC Championship game last year. And after the midpoint of the second quarter, it really wasn't a game. Since the end of the first quarter, every time San Francisco possessed the ball, they scored a touchdown. Every single drive. They turned that into 42 points as we speak, as the game's just about to end, as they lead 42-19 in Philadelphia. So clearly Vegas knew what they were saying when they made San Francisco a road favorite. The Eagles were the comeback kids. They were get punched in the mouth, look like you're going to lose the fight and come back and win it. Rally, find a way. Kind of like Mike Perry last night in Bare Knuckle FC. You're taking some big punches. It looks like you're going down, but you find a way to come back and win the fight. But today, San Francisco didn't let them. Philadelphia's missing important pieces. Their defense, their secondary, are not as good as they used to be. Their linebacking core, which you could argue is not an important piece of a football team, which of course isn't true, but you'll hear that from certain pundits, can't tackle. Morrow, Cunningham, missing guys in the open field, including that Deebo Samuel touchdown that should have been a tackle for a loss. But he turns it into a 50-plus yard touchdown. San Francisco has an incredible scheme. They have skill, talent all over the field. Brock Purdy is better than people give him credit for. He was a system quarterback. He was the Kyle Shanahan guy. But Brock Purdy can make every throw. He reads the field well. And when he's given time in the pocket, he can make you look silly. To me, San Francisco are as good as anybody. I still look at the Eagles as a team to be worried about come playoff time. But with this result, what it did for me is I start to question who's going to be the number one seed in the NFC. Because the Eagles get smoked and they get the Cowboys next weekend in Dallas. And Dallas Goedert is not playing, and Lane Johnson is banged up, and their defense, we still got to hear about Shaq Leonard. Is he going to go to Philly or is he going to go to Dallas? Well, watching the two teams this week, you look at it and go, Dallas has a better team. They have a better chance of going to the Super Bowl. But I'm curious to see where he goes. I think Philly needs him more than Dallas does, but both defenses look pretty poor this week. But San Francisco is firing on all cylinders. Their quarterback's playing well. They have the talent on the field. And they don't get to play Dallas. They've already beaten Dallas. They've already beaten Philly. So they own the tiebreaker over both of them. Meaning, if Dallas doesn't lose another game, which I think is not, I think they're going to lose a game. They're going to beat Philly, but they could very easily lose to Miami on Christmas Eve. They play the Lions, which is no gimme game. Dallas loses another game. If Philly at least loses one more game, if not more, San Francisco will be the number one seed. The NFC will run through San Fran. A very good home team. And they'll have something they haven't had in a while. Being able to play the NFC Championship game in San Francisco. They went to Lincoln Financial last season. And yes, Brock Purdy got hurt and it changed the way the game was going, but I still thought Philly would win that game regardless. But if it's in San Francisco, that's a whole other story. Not to mention, you get to play higher seeds. You're in better positions. So it all looks better for San Francisco. I think they very easily could win out. They get the Rams. So I was looking at their schedule earlier, thinking, who do they have left? Because as we get down to nitty-gritty, there's a lot of games you can't even predict because you don't know. Because these teams are the same. Atlanta from Tampa Bay to New Orleans. They're all the same. They're not good. They're not bad. But they're a team that exists. But San Francisco hosts the Seahawks next weekend at Arizona. Christmas Day, they host the Ravens, which is an awesome game, but it's in San Francisco. That's a heavyweight tilt on Christmas. Love that one. At the Commanders, who can't stop anybody, and host the Rams. Final game of the regular season. 5 games left, and they will be the favorite in every one of them. So they run the table. They go 14-3, and I think if they run the table, they are the number one seed. I don't have question marks about Brock Purdy. I don't have question marks about that defense. I don't have question marks that Christian McCaffrey is the best running back in football, because I think he is. That George Kittle is invaluable. There's so many things going for them as a team. And they've already gone through their lull. Saw this with Brady and the Buccaneers when they won their Super Bowl. They got to their bye week and they had lost 4 out of 5 games that first Bucs season with Tom Brady. Had their bye week later than this 49ers team did, but they had a loss going into their bye. They returned from their bye and they did not lose another game the rest of the way, and that included the Super Bowl. Along the way, they beat New Orleans, who they had previously lost to twice in that season. Got through beating Patrick Mahomes, and they won a Super Bowl. Still a lot of football to be played, but I think there's a lot of parallels. Brock Purdy, Tom Brady, you might say, okay, well, Tom Brady's the GOAT. Brock Purdy's pretty good. I think San Francisco has better weapons than Tom Brady did. They certainly have a better running back. Mike Evans is wonderful. He set a new mark today, his 10th straight season to start a career with 1,000 yards receiving, which is second only to Jerry Rice, who had 11. So he's great. But Ayuk, Debo, Kittle, Jawan Jennings, Christian McCaffrey, Elijah Mitchell. There's an endless barrage of talent that can beat you, that you have to figure out a way to stop. Then you have Kyle Shanahan, the boy genius, behind it all. Not to mention, you have home playoff games in there where you're looking at the threatening teams in the NFC. They just whooped Philadelphia in Philly. They beat Dallas at home, but all San Francisco does is beat Dallas. They've won their last 4 matchups. They beat them earlier in the season. Dak Prescott's an MVP against everybody seemingly this season, other than San Francisco. Detroit's a good team, but they have their flaws. They find ways to win. But do I think Detroit's defense is as good as San Francisco's? I don't. Do I think that Jared Goff's as good as Brock Purdy? I personally don't. I think Brock Purdy can outplay Jared Goff. I like the weapons better. I like Chase Young and Nick Bosa pair with Armstead, with Javon Hargrave. I mean, it doesn't end. New Orleans, a team that can't get anything right, found a way to put up points on Detroit today. Chris Olave was burning them, and if they had a quarterback down the stretch with a pulse, they might have won that game. San Francisco won't be in that position to begin with. So San Francisco made a statement that we've beaten San Fran, we've beaten Dallas, we've beaten Philly. We beat a playoff team, Seattle, in our own division already, and we'll try to do it again next week. Sure, we lost to Minnesota on a Monday night. Shit happens. We beat Jacksonville in Jacksonville, a division winner last year and a division winner again this year. And not just beat them, we whooped their ass. To me, their wins and what they do in those respective games are more impressive and more alarming than the losses that they've had. They push through the losses and have gotten better and better and better, and they keep moving forward. And the thing with the NFC, the 4 teams I mentioned, that's it. The NFC South winner is not going anywhere in the playoffs. It isn't like when Tom Brady was with the Bucs and they were a division winner and they got the host to playoff game and go on a run. Atlanta's not doing that with Desmond Ridder. Just not going to happen. Tampa Bay is not doing that with Baker Mayfield. They squeaked out a win against Carolina today. You got to love Carolina plus 5.5, by the way. And New Orleans isn't doing it with Derek Carr or Jameis Winston or Taysom Hill. Doesn't matter. I don't see a team out of the NFC, out of those 4 teams, that are going to go to a Super Bowl. No shot, actually. If Seattle makes the playoffs or if the Rams find a way in, I don't think they have the talent. The Rams who crushed the Browns today. And the Rams are now 6-6 on the season. Credit to them for battling through and getting to this position. But I think they're too young. I don't think they're a good enough team to go to a Super Bowl. The NFC is very predictable, and there's a lot of bad in there. A lot of bad. For Philadelphia, this was coming. You get down enough in games, it's going to hit you on the chin. Your defense isn't all that good. Teams finally take advantage of the secondary, and you're going to lose some games. And that's what San Francisco did, to their credit. I still think Jalen Hurts is a great quarterback. Parts of the Philadelphia play calling on offense, I hate. The amount of design runs, I've talked about this on 3rd and 7s. I don't understand it when it's not there. I liked early that they're going to A.J. Brown, getting him involved. He actually had a good day. But to no avail, because the game was out of reach. Philly needs Shaq Leonard. Philly was bound for a loss, and they got one. They don't look that threatening. They play hard, and Fletcher Cox is great, and Brandon Graham is great. Lane Johnson, Jason Kelsey. But they have an old team, and they seem to be wearing down a little bit. They're not winning at the line of scrimmage. Wide open players in the secondary. Still love Jalen Hurts, still love Nick Sirianni as a head coach. But when the running game isn't going and you can't figure out anything, and Kyle Shanahan did whatever the hell he wanted to do the entire day on Philly, this is what's going to happen. The Eagles should lose next weekend to Dallas. No doubt about it. The line hasn't come out yet on that game. We'll talk about it later in the week. Dallas is going to be the favorite. My initial guess is going to be Dallas minus 4.5. Might be lower, but that's my initial guess. We'll see later in the week. Dallas is just firing on all cylinders. Their defense hasn't been good, but they're at home. CeeDee Lamb's been fantastic. Darius Slay is not the great corner that he was last year. He's getting beat on a lot of plays. But the Eagles, they kind of need that game now. They need to find a way, and it's one loss. I'm not trying to exaggerate, because after the Eagles they play the Cowboys, at Seahawks, host the Giants, host the Cardinals, at the Giants. It's pretty easy. And they could win the remaining games and finish with the same record as San Francisco and the Cowboys, hypothetically. Because yes, the Cowboys have a much more difficult schedule. getting the Dolphins and getting the Lions, but I think for the Eagles all year, it doesn't look the same. The fact that you have to come back against the Commanders twice, who have exhibited over the last couple weeks that they can't play competent football, their secondary doesn't know what the fuck they're doing. They're playing press coverage against Tyreek Hill, like GMAB. What's in your skull? Coming back against just teams that you shouldn't have to come back against because you're more talented than the opposition. So this loss was coming. It was a long time coming, to quote the greatest Canadian band of all time, the Tragically Hip. And eventually, it caught them. Jalen left the game and came back. I hope he's banged up. Not just with a head injury. I think his knee's banged up. They've talked about this. He's not 100% healthy. For Philly, they lost at home today. That happens. But they want home field advantage. I think that atmosphere is huge. They got San Francisco again. It's in Lincoln Financial in the playoffs in January. The game can absolutely be different. It's just a different moment. It's a different feel. Jalen Hurts, as a clutch performer, finds a way. I want to see how Philly looks next weekend. In Dallas, a game they lost to Dallas last year in Dallas, but they did have Gardner Minshew at quarterback, but he's not all that bad. Just ask the Colts. To me, San Francisco and Dallas currently, although have one extra loss than the Eagles, both look more competent. Both look more threatening as we progress. Eagles have the cachet. They've been to the Super Bowl. They've been in these moments. Jalen Hurts was a throwaway from being the Super Bowl MVP last year. But they don't look to be on that level. They don't look to be where the 49ers and Cowboys are. But the Eagles still control their own destiny. You beat the Cowboys in Dallas. It sends a statement. You beat your division rival for the second time in the season. And you then get 4 teams with predictably losing records down the stretch to win the conference. Seahawks, Giants times 2, and Arizona. There's not many schedules that are better down the stretch for teams than the one Philly gets. But they need help. They need their secondary to play better. They need Bradbury and Darius Slay to figure out who's tackling. They need to have basic fundamentals this week in practice. How do we effing tackle? How is this acceptable? Eagles take one on the chin, but great teams find a way to bounce back from it. We'll see if they can do it next weekend in Dallas. I would say the second biggest story today has to be the Houston Texans. The Houston Texans made a statement, not by demolishing an opponent, but oddly enough, this is a statement from last May. Last May, we're at the NFL draft, Nashville. Great things are happening. You're making players. People projecting who's going to go first, second, third overall. It's a lot of fun. Draft projections. Houston's on the clock with the second overall pick. Carolina traded up to select Bryce Young. And Houston's at number 2, and they take Ohio State quarterback C.J. Stroud. Now, At the time, you go, he's not that talented, doesn't really move all that well. Was great in college, was great in his last college football game against Georgia. But, we don't know. Since that lethargic decision, he's been one of the best quarterbacks in the sport. He's averaging 300 yards a game, and he's 19 touchdowns, 5 interceptions on the season. Tank Dell has having a huge season. Nico Collins has more receiving yards this year than he has his entire career prior to this one. He had 9 for $191 today. CJ Stroud was a home run pick. His ability to move in the pocket, his intelligence. He gets sacked a decent amount because his offensive line, less because of him. He has no fear throwing the ball down the field, whether it's Tank Dell, Nico Collins, Dalton Schultz, doesn't seem to matter. Robert Woods hardly plays. John Mechie III hardly plays. Tank Dell left the game in the first quarter. Dalton Schultz did not play today. And yet the Houston Texans won a game that I thought they were going to lose to the Denver Broncos. And a big part of that is due to CJ Stroud, but it's also a statement to last May, not just with that selection. Houston selected CJ Stroud at number 2, and then they made a move. They traded up to have the 3rd pick in the NFL draft with the Arizona Cardinals. They gave up a bunch of stuff. You go, okay, who are they going to take? They took Will Anderson Jr. III out of the University of Alabama. Not a bad school, I hear. And Will Anderson Jr. III today, 6 tackles, 2 sacks, and a tip pass that led to an interception. That's the 2nd and 3rd overall pick in last year's draft, which would mean 2 rookies had the biggest impact on today's game for the Houston Texans. And then there's also Derek Stingley Jr., who the year prior they took 4th overall. So a lot of young men that don't have a lot of experience in the league balled out for Houston and are the nucleus of their team. All the 3 guys I just mentioned, all captains, including 2 rookies, which is rare. D'Amico Ryans, new head coach. CJ Stroud, new quarterback. Will Anderson Jr. playing his ass off. I thought the Broncos were going to win today's game. I really did. Because I looked around and went, they're riding a high. Russell Wilson's playing good football. Righted the ship. Defense under Vance Joseph's got it together. Cortland Sutton balling out. And yet, Houston finds a way. Houston in the big moments made plays that Denver simply couldn't. Russell Wilson, in the old days, clockwork, 2 minutes left, he's going to score a touchdown to win the game. And I thought it was going to happen again. 30 seconds left. 1st and goal, 2nd and goal, and on 3rd and goal, because the pass rush for Houston was getting home the entire day, caused chaos. Russell Wilson has to float one to the back of the end zone, and it's intercepted. A massive win for the Texans, improving them to 7-5, dropping the Broncos to 6-6, and that will tie the Texans with the Steelers and the Browns in the AFC playoff race. Their draft was phenomenal. They're producing talent. They made the right hire at head coach. Sometimes it is that simple. Because you think about it, Zach Wilson was the wrong pick, and we know it. Was Bryce Young the wrong pick? We don't know yet because I think that team's terrible. But do I think Bryce Young would be as good as CJ Stroud is in this Houston offense? I don't. They might be competitive. They might be in games, but I think you're seeing CJ Stroud be an NFL quarterback from the start, and he might get a Houston team that had nothing. Since they cut J.J. Watt, this team had no identity and was going nowhere fast. And yet now they do. Now it's a team I like to watch play. I was zeroed in on this game watching CJ Stroud, watching Will Anderson Jr., watching Tank Dell, another rookie who's having a fantastic season. Prior to his injury, he fractured his fibula. He's going to be out a while, which is a big loss. But getting that victory today at home against a Broncos team might get Houston to the playoffs. There are games left, but it's one of those games where you have the same record, and you got to find a way to win it. Because the Texans, at the Jets, at the Titans, host the Browns, host the Titans, at the Colts. I like that schedule. I like it a lot. I don't know. They might win out, the Houston Texans, with that game. Denver's not done with the loss, but it just makes it more difficult. You have less margin for error. And not to mention, Russell Wilson became a turnover machine today. 3 interceptions. 3 sacks. What I'd say to Sean Payton and Denver, number one, you should run the football more, but also when you're not running the football effectively, how good are the Denver Broncos? Not that good to me. Because you only give up 22 points on defense and you couldn't put up more than that to win the game? That's inexcusable. But Houston's a great story. To me, they're still in the fight with Jacksonville. You never know. They need a lot to go their way, but I see them being a wild card team. Because who the hell knows? Looking at the rest of the story, Pittsburgh loses to Arizona today. Because Pittsburgh is Pittsburgh, and now Pittsburgh, Kenny Pickett left the game with an ankle injury. Kenny Pickett's hurt. It's up to Mitch Trubisky. And nobody has confidence in Mitch Trubisky, including Mitch Trubisky. Completely changes, and Pittsburgh was a bad offensive team to begin with, but it makes them worse. Cleveland. Joe Flacco. Oddly enough, Joe Flacco didn't play terrible today. And the score is a little misleading because the fourth quarter, the Rams just put it on them. Joe Flacco, was he perfect? No. Turned the ball over once. But it's Joe Flacco in his late 30s playing football in December. It's not going to get better than that. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, he's a rookie. 5th rounder out of UCLA. PJ Walker, a journeyman from the XFL. So, again, Cleveland's got their problems. It's a jumble of just what's going to happen. Because I think this season, more than any in the NFL, you know who the clear-cut the teams are. And the wildcard teams are kind of irrelevant. Because I don't think wildcard teams can win these games. I don't think the Browns can win a wildcard game anymore with their quarterback situation, regardless of who's playing. I don't think the Steelers are threatening without Kenny Pickett. And they weren't that threatening with Kenny Pickett. Houston might be the only wildcard team that I'd fear. I'd go, shit, we got to play them? We got to play the Houston Texans? Okay, they got to come on the road, but I don't want to play CJ Stroud. I don't want any part of it. Because if they say that Houston gets the 5th seed, which I think they very well could. Because again, we just talked about, I don't know if they lose another game. So if they're 7-5 and they go 12-5 on the season, and they're the 5th seed in the AFC. If I'm number 4, I don't want to play them. If I'm the Jags or it's the Dolphins, whoever it might be, I don't want Houston. Give me Cleveland. Yes, Myles Garrett's great. Their defense is threatening. I don't care. They're getting more and more banged up, and it might be Joe Flacco. It could be another journeyman they call in off the street to play quarterback for them. Serve me that up on a silver platter. I'll take it. NFC, same thing. The wild card teams are not threatening. In the NFC, wild card teams are just there. Again, the Colts, same story. Because technically the Texans aren't in. They're going to be in. Because the Browns are going to lose more games. To me, anyway. Jaguars next week. Bears at Texans, which is a huge game for both. And at the Jets. Not brutal, but that remaining schedule, do you win? Can you beat the Bears and the Jets? Maybe. Colts, who a big win today for them, and credit to them. Overtime victory, Gardner Minshew with some big throws, some gutsy throws. They're at the Bengals next week versus the Steelers, at the Falcons versus the Raiders, and then they finish with the Texans. It's so hard to predict these games because every team's the same. All these wildcards they're not good, they're not bad, they're just there. Colts are as good as anybody else. Other than my Texans, of course. But, I mean, the NFC South is an offense to anybody. Saints stink. Falcons stink. Tampa Bay just won a game against Carolina. Stink. And shout out to my buddy Nick, who was at that game. Sorry I wasn't there with you. Because really, there wasn't that many other good games on today. But Chiefs, Ravens, Fish, Jaguars, Dolphins, Dallas, Philly, San Francisco, Detroit. There's eight teams that I think that could, and I don't even believe that Detroit can win one. I don't believe Detroit can win a Super Bowl this year. I could be wrong, but I don't think it will be. I'm not confident on the Dolphins either. Here's the other thing. A quarterback always wins the MVP. We've talked about this. It's always got to be a quarterback. Oh, we got to pigeonhole one in. Is it going to be Dak? Is it going to be Brock Purdy? Jalen Hurts was the betting favorite, and then he lost a game today. So, of course, it's one game, so his odds will go down because it's a one-game reaction in the NFL. But here's the thing. The MVP of the league is Tyreek Hill. I've been saying this. Tyreek Hill is the MVP of the NFL. If anything in life, if you think, if he's anything, is that guy a good person? If you have to think about it, he's not. Is he good at his job? No, he's not. Is he a Hall of Famer? If it's even a split decision, if it's even, I got to really picture this. No, that's the answer. Life's pretty easy. Yes or no. Yes, no. That's how I live my life anyway. When you go, is that just go through it. Do I like my dog? Yes. Do I like my parents? Yes. Do I like my sister? Yes. Do I like going to church? Fuck no. Again, it's pretty easy. Just go through this. Tyreek Hill had 5 catches for $157 today and 2 touchdowns. Also ran the ball twice. 2 catches of over 60 yards as the Dolphins completely smoked the Washington football team. Tyreek Hill this year now leads the NFL in touchdowns, in receiving yards. He's changed this offense. He's made Tua look like an MVP player. Tyreek Hill now has 1,481 yards receiving and 12 touchdowns. It's 5 more touchdowns than the next closest guy. Which is something like CeeDee Lamb having a great year. He's at 1,182. Tyreek Hill's almost at 1,500 yards receiving. 24 catches of 20 plus, 9 40 plus, and 78 is a long, which leads the NFL. The Dolphins have a 9-3 record, and he very well could get to 2,000 yards receiving this year, which would be the first receiver ever to do that. And there's an extra game and all that. I don't care. It's something else. He's got 93 catches, which is second. Keenan Allen's got 9 more, and he still has more receiving yards. Way more. Over 300 more. Dak might play his way into an MVP over the next couple weeks. Could play his way out of it the way he plays against the Eagles too. We shall see. To me, Tyreek Hill, if the season ended today, would get the award. I don't give a shit that he's a wide receiver. Because again, if it's just you have to give it to this certain position, why? Why is that a bylaw? Is that in the rule book? It has to go to a quarterback? Is it Brock Purdy? Well, I could see it. Is it Dak? Well, I could see it. Is it Jalen Hurts? I could see it. Why not Tyreek Hill? Who's had more impact on their team? Who's had more impact on the game? Who's setting up crazy statistics? I mean, it's something else. But again, will he win it? Probably not. Because that's the way it works. But to me, he's the MVP. Because nobody's been better than Tyreek Hill in the NFL at their position. Simple as that. Today I mentioned Colts beat the Titans. Minshew threw a touchdown pass in overtime, win their 4th straight. Credit to them. Division game on the road. Falcons edged the Jets. Can't really talk about it because I didn't watch a snap of it. But the Falcons won 13-8. Mentioned Cardinals beat the Steelers. Chargers beat the Patriots in a game of just complete crap. Dolphins crushed the Commanders. Bucks edged the Panthers. Rams and the 49ers. Tonight we get Chiefs at Green Bay. Mahomes' first game at Lambeau. Then Monday Night Football tomorrow, you get 49ers Jags. Jags Bengals, which would have been a great game, but Joe Burrow was hurt, obviously, and now Jake Browning is behind center. But that's really the NFL day. There wasn't a whole lot that happened. It wasn't a great slate of games. It wasn't a whole lot of great football. I love watching. I'm not complaining about having it on my screen, believe you me. But were there a whole lot of moments that you go, wow, that was impressive? Or I can't wait to think of that game again in 10 years. No. They just weren't there. Let's talk some college football. It's conference championship weekend. I got a lot wrong. I told you that Oregon would 100% beat Washington. And I was wrong. Friday night in Vegas, Washington won the line of scrimmage. They were more physical than Oregon. Michael Penix Jr. made some big throws. Rome Odunze, who's the stud of studs, some big catches. And Washington beats Oregon for the second time this season. And basically, it secured their spot in the college football playoff, being undefeated, beating Oregon, beating Arizona, beating USC, and beating Oregon State. All ranked teams at the time that they beat them. Move to Saturday. 1 o'clock slate. The Texas Longhorns made a statement. Playing Oklahoma State, Quinn Ewers, 9 incompletions, 4 touchdowns. Xavier Worthy, Adonai Mitchell, all over 100 yards. Steve Sarkisian had his bag out, creating different plays. And their last game in the Big 12, they're the Big 12 champions, and they mow them down. We then get into the game of the day. Alabama at Georgia. Georgia had won 29 straight games, 27 straight in the SEC, two-time national champions. And Alabama beat Georgia. Jalen Milroe with some big runs down the stretch. Prentice with some great routes into the end zone to catch touchdown passes. Georgia made uncharacteristic mistakes, a few fumbles, a number of drops, 3rd and shorts that they could not convert. And Nick Saban improved his record against the number 1 team in the country to 5-0 all time, which is 4 more wins than any other coach has. Nick Saban again proving why he's the greatest coach in the history of the sport. But Alabama beating Georgia. Chaos ensues. Not to mention that could Jalen Milroe be in the running for the Heisman? I think he might get an invite now. Huge effort. The way the season started for Alabama, losing to Texas, winning a 10-6 game over South Florida, where Milroe was benched, overcoming Ole Miss, beating LSU. This was a moment for Alabama that I don't think anybody expected, including me. And with Alabama winning, to me, it signaled Texas is going to the college football playoff because Texas beat Alabama earlier in the year. So they're not going to put Alabama in over Texas because it makes no sense. Texas beat them in Tuscaloosa. We get to the nightcaps. Florida State playing Louisville for the ACC title. And Michigan playing Iowa for the Big Ten championship. 2 awful football games. Michigan does not allow a point, but they only scored 24. You took Iowa under point total first half, under point total second half, and under the number, like I told you all to do on Friday. You made some money. Iowa is pathetic offensively. Michigan, Blake Corum scored 2 rushing touchdowns, which ties him for the all-time record for rushing touchdowns in the history of the Michigan program. So congratulations to him. But after that Michigan game, I'm going to bed and I'm thinking, Washington should be the number 1 team in the country. Michigan beat Ohio State. Okay, great. Big whoop. They beat Penn State. Great. They beat Iowa. Ugh. And then they beat a whole bunch of schools that, quite frankly, weren't that good. They had one of the easiest schedules in college football. I mentioned who Washington beat. They've beaten Oregon twice. They've beaten these teams. Washington has a better resume than Michigan. Now, I never thought they'd put Washington over Michigan. Kalen DeBoer made the argument, which I applaud him. Washington should have been number 1. We'll talk about who's actually there. But I'm like, okay, Michigan's in. Then there's Florida State, who lost their senior great quarterback, Jordan Travis, to a broken leg a number of weeks ago. And you go, Florida State, this sucks for them. They probably won't win the last two games in the swamp at Florida and then the ACC title game. But they did with their backup quarterback, Tade Rodemaker. And then he gets concussed and the third string quarterback has to come in, Glenn. He only threw for 55 yards last night, but Florida State beats Louisville, wins the ACC championship, and they go to bed thinking, well, we're undefeated. We're a Power 5 conference. There's no way we're not getting into the college football playoff. And then we get to this afternoon where their show takes fucking forever on the mothership to reveal the teams. Thank you, Reese Davis. Asshole. But then we hear it. Number 1, Michigan. Just talked about it. Washington should have been number 1, but Michigan number 1. It's predictable. They beat Ohio State. They're a great team. Number 2, Washington. Yes, undefeated. Pac-12. Penix might win the Heisman. Great team. Number 3, Texas. Makes sense. 1 loss. Big 12 champion. Quinn Ewers. They look great. Such a statement win on Saturday. They were going in. Here's the debate at number 4. Undefeated, Florida State or 1 loss Alabama. Alabama's healthy. They have a quarterback. They have a team. They just beat Georgia, who are the reigning 2-time national champions, on a neutral field. Or Florida State, who's on to the third string quarterback. And if they play Michigan, how much does Florida State lose that game by? Is it 20? Is it 30? Is it like the Iowa game? Probably. That nobody wanted to watch. And part of this committee is thinking about the product, thinking about what's going to be good for television, and it's going to get you ratings. So the number 4 team selection, the Alabama Crimson Tide. Which is unprecedented because there was no time in the history of the college football playoff that a Power 5 team was not voted into the playoff after being undefeated. So Florida State becomes the first team in the last year of the 14 playoff. It will expand to 12 teams next year. First of all, I'm okay with the list. I think the College Football Playoff Committee got it right. These 2 matchups, which will happen on New Year's Day, are compelling. I think they're both competitive. I expect the lines on the games to be close. And while Michigan's look great all year and they're undefeated, do I think they're a clear-cut winner over Alabama? No. Same with Washington. I think that game, Texas-Washington, is fireworks. Great plays all over the field. Quarterbacks who can throw the ball down the field. That is phenomenal theater. Florida State deserved to be in the college football playoff. Yes. I don't disagree with that. By their record, they did. But did I want to watch Florida State play Michigan? No. And nobody does. If Jordan Travis was healthy, they would have gone in. That is the bitter irony about all of this. But Jordan Travis is not healthy, so they're not in the playoff. It's a tough break. I feel for them. It sucks. The ACC had a great year. They had a winning record against the SEC, which has got to sting as well. But this is just the way the cookie crumbles. It was the correct decision. And we look at these lines. Michigan is only a 1.5-point favorite against Alabama. A point and a hook. And they're undefeated in the Big Ten. Washington is the number 2 seed, and they are a 4.5-point dog against Texas. This tells you how close they are. The lines would not be this way. I still think Georgia and Oregon are really good teams that are likely better than a couple of these teams in the college football playoff, including Washington and Texas. But this is the product. Florida State, they get their consolation prize. So in between, a couple days before New Year's, getting to New Year's Day, there's New Year's 6 bowl games, right? To number them, December 29th, they start. There's Missouri playing Ohio State, which is actually a fun game. Ole Miss, Penn State on December 30th. Then there's Georgia playing Florida State, the 5th and 6th seeds, respectively. Florida State, this is your chance. You get Georgia on a neutral site. And I'm looking it up now on FanDuel Sportsbook. They are a 2-touchdown dog against Georgia, and Georgia will likely have a lot of players sitting out of this game because they'll want to not risk getting injured before the NFL draft. And you're still a 2-touchdown underdog. That's why Florida State is not in the college football playoff. Go beat Georgia and say, hey, we were national champions. We won our bowl game. We made this happen. We upset Georgia, who were the reigning 2-time national champs. Suck it, committee. Suck it, college football. But they got it right. Number of these games as well. Liberty, they get a New Year's 6 bowl game. Love that for them. They're playing Oregon. 2-touchdown under Liberty, another undefeated team. They didn't get in. They're not bitching about it. Oregon State, Notre Dame on December 29th. Clemson, Kentucky. Arizona, Oklahoma, which is a lot of fun. NC State, Kansas State, Rutgers, University of Miami, Texas A&M, Oklahoma State, Louisville, USC. North Carolina, West Virginia. Bowling Green, Minnesota, Utah, Northwestern. December 20th, James Madison and Air Force. Good for James Madison getting a bowl game. I love bowl season. I don't care who's playing in the games. You get close to Christmas, there's bowl games. I credit Matt Wright and myself for getting these bowl games. This year, there are no bowl game on Christmas Eve. But there's a reason for that. It's not because we didn't work hard enough. It's because there are games all damn day on Christmas Eve because the NFL is playing Christmas Eve. It's week 16. You have Thursday nighter. You have 3 games on December 23rd, which is Saturday, Bengals, Steelers, Bills, Chargers. Only 2 games. Pardon me, I thought there were 3. And then Christmas Eve, there are the full slate. Cowboys, Dolphins that day. Patriots, Broncos. And you have 3 games on Christmas Day, which include Raiders, Chiefs, Giants, Eagles, and Ravens and the 49ers. So that's why there's no bowl games on Christmas Eve. But bowl season's fun. Fun matchups. Football to end the year. Getting closer to the national championship. So while there's controversy, it's a big show. The mothership does a pretty decent job for the most part. I liked what the committee did. I agree with it. It's a tough decision. You feel horrible for Florida State. But sometimes that's just how the cookie crumbles. And it's a TV product, and you want people to tune in. You want viewership. You want them to watch the entire game and not to turn it off after halftime, which is what I think would have happened if Florida State got in. Florida State was one of the 4 deserving teams to go, but they were not one of the 4 best teams. And that's the difference. News here from Adam Schefter. Steelers quarterback Kenny Pickett's ankle injury is expected to sideline him a couple of weeks. Per league source, the Steelers host the Patriots on Thursday night, and Mitch Trubisky now is expected to be the starter. So a short week for the Steelers. No Kenny Pickett and Mitch Trubisky moving forward. The best thing you can say for the Steelers is you get the Patriots, who are allergic to scoring points. Incredible stuff. A tough break for the Steelers. They're just trying to find their way a little bit on offense, and your quarterback goes down. But the NFL today was interesting. Things are happening. You just look up and go, wow, that team's in the mix. And that team's in the mix. Artemi Panarin had a hat trick today in the NHL, if you didn't know. It's a wild world in sports. I mean, the Minnesota Wild have turned it around. The Edmonton Oilers have turned it around. Another Leaf game that goes to overtime or the gimmick with Brad Marchand scoring the winner. That was a good game last night, but I got to say, I'm sick of overtime. Told this to my friends last night. The entire league doesn't have a killer instinct. No team can hold a lead. It's just, okay, let's give up these bad shots, bad opportunities, and we're going to let the other team score goals and claw back into the game. Teaching defensemen just to play defense, it's as if it's like you want to teach. I don't even know the comparison. You just say, we need offensive defensemen. We can't teach anybody to play basic fundamentals on the back end. That's why there's so many games that are going to overtime. It's not because it's so exciting and all the teams are so close. That's stupid argument. It's because nobody knows how to close out a game. Because nobody has killer instinct. Nobody knows what the hell they're doing. Oh, I'm not going to box that guy out. Oh, I'm going to take this chance to score an empty netter. Stupid. There's so few Jacob Slavins out there that just know how to do it. Half the leagues, overtime, another game, overtime here, overtime here. Oh, it's something else. But if you love 3-on-3, it's like your wet dream. I don't, but hey, it's not all about me. Although it should be, really, because it's my show, so it kind of should be about me. But Scotty Scheffler won the Hero World Challenge this weekend. Tiger Woods returned. Good to see him out there. Scheffler, Seb Straka, who had a great final day, finishing second. Justin Thomas in third. We'll have some reaction to the UFC that took place last night later in the week. We'll recap Monday Night Football. Should be back Tuesday. But hope you guys enjoyed this little Sunday night breakdown. A little shorter than usual, but again, fun stuff nevertheless. Be back with you guys Tuesday. Appreciate the support. Appreciate you guys listening. Till then, take care. This to the point.